There's some podcast characters that are in the movie in the beginning.
It's so of this time that like every film, if they really want to have super douchey characters, they're always on a podcast.
Yeah.
And I always chuckle and I always die a little inside. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is review number 524 with a review of Halloween. We'll let you guess which year. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week on the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest film releases coming to a theater near you. This week, we are here to review 2018's Halloween. And in a roundabout way, we're probably going to be doing a little bit of reviewing of 1978's Halloween as well, because this is the sequel to that film. Yeah, I mean...
So, ground rules, we are not going to acknowledge any sequels between these two movies, right?
I think that is the official stance of the universe.
Right, we will take that stance as well.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we're here, we're talking about horror films again. We don't always cover horror films, and sometimes in the past we have covered horror films which you have not participated in.
Yeah, almost always.
And sometimes we just haven't gotten to do a review because I saw it, but I wasn't going to do a review by myself.
Because you're scared.
Yeah, I was too scared to do the review by myself. Yeah, I mean, we're here. We're talking about horror films. I'm hinting at it right now, but what is your sort of what is your opinion on the genre as far as you being a enjoyer of it?
Yeah, I am not a fan of horror movies at all. I think maybe that is starting to change only because the last few that I've been forced to do for this podcast, I have wound up like usually not having as like scary a time as I am thinking I will. Yeah. So maybe like I've turned that corner in my brain where now I'm just so cynical. I'm like, that's not fucking real. And the things that used to scare me don't anymore. But so the kind that if there are trailers before this movie that scared me in ways that the movie didn't do. Like, not to spoil this movie one way or another, but there are images where if an image is disturbing enough and I can project that onto my own daily life, that can fuck me up. Like, because that becomes a thing that I think about all the time, right? We reviewed It last year, the new It movie.
Weird, scary, nun lady.
Yeah, that weird nun lady, like, I became afraid of her for a while in my apartment. There was maybe like an 8-month period of time, and that's me being generous. It's like still true, where I like would be afraid to leave my bedroom door open because I would imagine like a fucking clown running around all of a sudden. The little, not the big one, the little one that's like holding a balloon and going like, "Come and get," or whatever he says. The details are shady.
You're scared of something you can't even visualize right now.
Well, vague things are scary. Specific things are not scary. That is why you don't show the monster, right? Like, it is scary. It is terrifying to be around like a vague threat. And I think what a certain variety of good horror movie does is like gives you the feeling of the threat of everyday life, the threat of every corner, of every light switch you haven't turned on yet, of every window that the blinds are shut, and you know if you fucking opened it, there would be a face out there. And that screws with me. So yeah, I cannot properly enjoy horror movies most of the time because I can front load the adrenaline of like a good time, and I know I'm going to pay that back with like 3 months of hating my life.
So what about with the House with the Clock on its Wall? We never did a follow-up to that. Was any of the imagery...
No.
Okay.
No, that didn't scare
me.
me.
Those puppets were creepy, though. Those little weird puppets in the basement. Those were scary as hell.
Yeah, but those didn't give me nightmares or anything like that. What about you, Chris?
So I sort of wrote off horror films a lot growing up just because A, my parents weren't going to like watch them with me. And B, they were just a genre of film that I didn't really get excited about. I think as I've gotten older and as I've spent time like through the podcast over the last like 10 years or whatever it's been, like going to see some of these things, I enjoy the little goosebumps that I get watching films. I enjoy the being creeped out by moments. I don't usually carry those with me as I leave the theater, but I do enjoy sitting in a moment of just being weirded out. I'm excited when new ones come out. I'm excited when they're comedy horror films like Happy Death Day, which I enjoyed last year. Yeah, you're gonna go watch that one now, so we can do a review of that once it's ready to come out. I think the horror genre is fun. It's not always great or stellar. A lot of the times I have to do homework and go back and revisit films, which we may get to it a little bit before I can go see the one that we're going to be reviewing. But it is a thing that I can get behind.
Do you remember what is the last one that we reviewed? Because I remember going over this rant not that long ago.
Yeah. Do not remember.
Because typically,
I feel like it was the last one that we did.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like there had to be some in between those. But anyway, typically I've been making an exception for like acclaimed movies or movies that I think likely will be, right? Like I did The Babadook, I did The Witch. I wasn't around for It Follows. Yeah. I don't think I boycotted that. I almost watched it this weekend just because I think the thing It Follows is like riffing on is like a thing that the original Halloween, if not started, at least is like definitely a hallbearer for, of the relationship between sex and horror, and like horror as it pertains to like morality stories about teenage sexuality. So that is how far I've come, is I almost like on my own at night watched It Follows last night just because I wanted to have somebody to talk about on the podcast.
It Follows might creep you out more than some other things that you've seen.
Yeah, just from verbal descriptions of it have creeped me out.
Yeah. There's at least one shot I know that will, let's just say you definitely won't be able to have your door open into the hallway at night.
I wonder how many of us there are in the world who have seen Under the Silver Lake and have not seen It Follows. I might be one of the only people who did that. But I'm not sorry.
Nice slide drop that you've seen Under the Silver Lake.
Well, just everyone in that theater that I was with were like, I wonder what he's doing now because It Follows was so good. And I was like, I haven't seen It Follows.
Sad. Should we get into this review?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a listen to the trailer for, I almost said It Follows, but it's not what it is, Halloween 2018. And then we're going to come back and give you guys a review.
Trick or treat! So my house is here. Which one should we go to? They're all spooky. I'm going to pick that one over on across the street. Oh, what the? Hey! Sorry about that. Sorry.
40 years ago, on Halloween night, Michael Myers murdered 3 people.
After that horrific night, he was sent back to the institution in captivity.
Prayed every night that he would escape.
What the hell did you do that for?
So I can kill him. The bus crashed.
Michael Myers escaped. He'll return to Haddonfield, his home.
I need to protect my family.
You have no security system, Karen.
Mom, you need help.
Evil is real.
There's a reason we're supposed to be afraid of this night.
I've been preparing for this for a long time. It is not safe to be on the street tonight.
Go home! Get out of here! Get inside! Michael!
He's here. He is a killer, but he will be killed tonight. Happy Halloween, Michael.
All right, so that was the trailer for Halloween. In the original Halloween, a young child murders his sister and then is put away in like mental institution, I guess, and eventually escapes and goes on a little killing spree, of which there is
a little one.
I mean, it's a 5 people, right?
It's not even a spree. That's
I think the 5 even
you're not
counts,
even in monster mode yet. I don't.
The
think.
5 counts the sister. I mean, you gotta like complete the hand after you get out. You can't just like include somebody from 20 years ago or whatever it was. Anyways, so he also, I mean, spoilers for the original Halloween. We don't see him be apprehended at the end of that film.
We don't.
He just escapes, and then we're supposed to ignore the films in between, but also he's been in prison since that last film.
Right.
Unimportant.
This movie has like one sentence to kind of explain that.
Is the sentence, I was there the night he was arrested?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure we're on the same page.
Establishing that he was indeed arrested.
Yeah. Anyways, so here we are now once again. He has been put away. And while he's being transported to a new facility, something happens and he is set loose again. Jamie Lee Curtis, who is the survivor from the first film, has been waiting and praying every night that he would eventually escape. And now it's time for her to try to protect her family and hopefully take down Michael Myers before he can make another Austin Powers film.
I was going to make a Wayne's World joke, but you beat me. Can we both agree we just don't want him to make The Love Guru?
I just don't want him to make Shreks or Austin Powers again. But anyways, different Michael Myers, obviously. But what did you think of both films?
Yeah, so we both actually watched the original Halloween this weekend as well, leading up to this review. So I think both movies are very fresh in our minds right now.
I finished it like an hour before going to the theater to see the new one.
Yeah, and I finished it the night before. I had seen it before, but it had been a while. And I think when I saw it, I was young because I did not pick up on a lot of the things that the movie was about. I think... So the original one is a classic, and I understand why it is a classic. It kind of established this idea of... I'll put it another way. I was wondering going into that movie, what makes Michael Myers scary? You know, of all the bad guys that could be in movies, how come this person with a mask and a knife that doesn't really demonstrate much of anything by way of like terrifying attributes, like what is scary about him? And I think what's scary is he is just a force of nature. He's this force of evil. There's this line in a song I love by Aquava River. Now it's about a person who committed a murder that goes like... And I think that's like what Michael Myers is like evil doesn't look like anything. Evil is this thing, this blank face, this mask that is not readable. The motives are not understandable, and it just keeps fucking coming. And it doesn't make sense. You think you can stop it, but it's just going to come again and again and again and again. There's this way he behaves when he gets like knocked down, when he gets stabbed or shot or whatever happens to him, where he's laying for a second, and then the soundtrack just goes like boom, and he sits up, and it's like he's being like just pulled by a string, right? And then he's back and he's coming at you again. And I think the first movie established that in like a pretty compelling way. I think the opening to that movie is great. The opening where we see young Michael Myers. We don't know that at the time. We're from the point of view of him stabbing his sister.
Like even to the point where like I know that the character's name is Michael Myers. When he walks outside and it's still in first person and the parents say Michael, I just assume Michael's the kid in the house and that he's killed him as well. Yeah. And then like he's gonna pull up the mask and reveal that, like, no, I'm not Michael, stabs it. Like, I don't, like, it's like explosion, little child in a clown costume. Like, it's a pretty awesome opening to a film.
Yeah, definitely. And from the get-go, too, I don't know what John Carpenter's thesis is here, but from the get-go, like, violence and the sexuality of, like, teenage girls is, like, very, very tied, right? He's a kid who is seeing his sister in I don't even remember the exact scenario she's in, but she's clearly, like, you know, getting ready to
No,
like,
she's
sleep with her boyfriend.
It's post-coital.
Yeah.
And she's just, like, combing her hair in front of a mirror.
Yeah, and there's just something he doesn't understand, and he stabs.
But he picks up the knife before he goes and stabs her.
Right, yeah, so we don't know exactly why it's happening.
I mean, he'd have to. That wouldn't make sense if he stabbed her before he picked up the knife.
Yeah, but so, like, that's a motif in the beginning, and then when he gets out, the people he is going after, unless it's just, like, in service to a goal, like, I think he stabs someone to get in the car, but otherwise, he is going after girls who are, like, in homes, who are, like, messing around with their boyfriend, and he even, like, stabs new ones in a way that is almost like an homage to the original woman that he killed.
Yeah.
So there's something very weird, like, interesting here that's, like, mingling those two things. And I think the original is cheesy as fuck, of course. Like, the dialogue is ridiculous. Dr. Loomis, the character, is, like, such a silly character who's just there, like, so he can pan at the camera and say, like, Michael is coming, you know, and it's all very silly, but I think it works. Like, I think the ambience works, and I think the soundtrack has a lot to do with it. I think that score is great and classic, and I don't know, it's just it's a classic kind of old 70s horror movie, and it definitely, like, set the ball rolling on this trope that would continue in a ton of different fronts. The new movie, it was interesting watching it right after, because you kind of see, like, okay, what are they doing here? What are they trying to homage? Why make this movie now, 40 years after the original, and why is this the, quote, true sequel in the way that all the others that won't be mentioned are not?
Yeah.
And I think, for starters, it's definitely trying to pick up on that idea of Michael Myers as being just some almost unmotivated force of evil that just keeps coming and coming. I think in this movie, you're hardly even focusing on him. You're focusing on characters preparing for him. And Jamie Lee Curtis is basically the one person who is aware of what is coming and the extent of how much that matters, where her whole life has just been building and building and building to this moment where she will get to fight back against this thing that traumatized her as a little girl. And I think when it's focused on that, it's just that dynamic of these two unstoppable, like an unstoppable force and an unstoppable object, right? Like, getting ready to collide. I think the movie is, like, a pretty great sequel of it. Like, not necessarily perfectly made, like, still cheesy, still hokey, but, like, that basic theme of, like, this is going to be the resolution of this thing that happened 40 years ago with the same actress. I thought that was cool. Like, I actually quite enjoyed getting to watch that play out. And I think if you look at the, quote, politics, not that I think the movie has a bunch of them, but this movie is clearly trying to take the original stuff about, like, girl sexuality and, like, be careful when you're home alone and you should be afraid of this, you should be afraid of that, and flip it into now, like, the younger granddaughter has things happen to her with terrible guys, and she basically just says, like, fuck you, and storms away. And the thrust of the movie is basically, like, generations of women that are kind of like, fuck you to this monster that has been attacking them. So it's clearly doing something there where it, like, recognizes that the year it's in is different from the year, you know, in the 70s, and it's deciding to, like, acknowledge that in a way. I think when this movie is doing...
The first character in this film to die pretty much dies in a the bathroom at a gas station. So I don't know that supports the...
Sure, no, that one. But again, I don't know why they die, except for it's in service to him getting a specific object that's going to be relevant later. So much like the first movie, other people die if it's in service to a goal that he has.
Yeah.
I will say this time, though, Michael Myers, and where I think this movie goes off the rails a bit more, is Michael Myers kills, like, way more at random, I think, in this movie than in the other one. I mean, there are scenes where he just, like, barges in and attacks someone. We see it in the trailer.
Yeah.
It isn't clear why he does that, and I don't think it, like, builds this mythology of him. It just makes him be this kind of, like, rampaging killer in a much more traditional modern horror movie way.
Yeah, it's almost like he's charging up, right? He has to get the first few kills out of the way just so he can like regain his evilness, and then go after his actual target.
Yeah, I also think when this movie deviates from like Jamie Lee Curtis's character, or I'll say her heritage, because there's multiples, it was mostly boring to me. Like, I don't know, there are things of like the relationship between him and the doctor. There's some podcast characters that are in the movie in the beginning.
It's so of this time that like every film, if they really want to have super douchey characters, they're always on a podcast.
Yeah.
And I always chuckle and I always die a little inside.
Yeah, and the douchey podcast characters, like, they're all kind of one-offs, and watching them go through their journeys is a lot more just like, I don't know, perfunctory horror shade of like, okay, now we're gonna see the kill count go up. So in the end, I don't know what to say. I thought like as a sequel, this did some things that were really fun. It definitely had a few shots that were clearly homaging the original. There's a fun one where Jamie Lee Curtis kind of turns the tables on a thing that happened in the original movie, where now the threat has flipped in a way that's kind of fun to watch.
Does it involve a window?
Yeah, it involves a window. But overall, I don't know. It did service to the original, but the original was like an idea in the 70s, and I don't know that it needed to be updated in any way.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is really adding to it either. But I had fun with it. I didn't hate it. I thought it was entertaining.
Yeah. So to preface everything that I'm going to say, it is extremely hard for me to watch really old films. Period. They come from a different time, obviously, but there's also there's just like they lack the cadence of modern film, and sometimes it's hard to take seriously when I watch it. As you said, like the dialogue in the original Halloween is god awful. It is really bad. The acting is terrible, pretty much across the board. And there were times when I was watching the film that I was just giggling at really dumb things that were happening in it. But I enjoyed aspects of it that were really, really fun. As we talked about already, like the opening to that film is amazing, really, really interesting. I definitely feel that most horror, because lots of people like to get together and watch horror films on Halloween and laugh at how silly they are. And it's not just they like watching people get slashed up. There's a lot of cheeseball stuff about old horror films, and Halloween is not, it doesn't shy away from those same problems. Like it's clearly a premise. There's this guy named Michael Myers who killed his sister, and now he's just coming at people with knives. And that's the whole thing. It doesn't try to go deep into his psyche. It doesn't try to establish why he might be a sympathetic killer. It doesn't do anything. It's just, here he is, and now he's coming after people who have sex, and they're going to die. You get to see a boob, and then you get to see blood, and then welcome to the 70s and 80s, right? And I think that, like, it is kind of hard to watch those films and see the merit. You did a very good job of comparing it to a film that you didn't see, but all those things are apt. Like this idea of this thing that is just coming all the time. It's the Pepe Le Pew of threats, right? And it's just a thing that is always coming towards you. And I like that aspect of it. It teeters that edge so hard. There's scenes where just like, it's just like him sticking his head out from behind a bush. And then you're just like, what the fuck is this?
I can see your feet.
And like, characters just like, I'm going to come around the bush and look at you. Oh my God, he's
knock
gone.
off Josh Gad.
Well, that's the new one. I'm still talking about the original one. Knock off Josh Gad.
Got ahead of you.
Was pretty great. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, it's hard to take those films seriously. And walking into this film, I was very much like, oh, I'm totally going to like this film. I'm going to like the new one more than I like the original one. Like Carson's going to yell at me and it's going to be some sin that I've committed. But I was prepared for it because I just can't take the older films seriously. I can appreciate what they do. I can appreciate the things that are built up on top of those. I've talked over the years on this podcast about a mockumentary called Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, about this. It's like this comedy mockumentary about this guy who wants to become one of these slasher guys, and he's just setting up based on the tropes of things from before. And it's like all of these films, these original films, are all playing into this, or the documentary is borrowing from all these things to try to invent like where this lore comes from, all these characters. Love that documentary. I enjoy watching slasher films just for fun. But I just don't take them seriously. But when you watch one of the old ones and you watch one of the new ones, this magical synergy of seeing what came before and seeing what is here now, it just becomes this beautiful little treat of getting to see things pay off in ways that are super compelling, that both films by themselves I probably would care nothing about. But the combination of seeing these two things back to back and watching them work over time, I don't have the nostalgia play, but I do have the seeing of how things carry forward and what they try to add to the original story, what they take away from the original story. And I thought this was really, really fun. I was explaining to somebody today that this isn't just like your average slasher film. This is like a revenge tale of a person who is laying in wait to be like, to prepare for a thing that will maybe one day never come, but you know it will because it has to. And it's just, there's something really fun about the journey these characters go on. And I think that there is extremely dumb stuff in here. Jamie Lee Curtis plays a person who for 40 years has been training with all this shit, has fortified a building, but still will put her head against a glass window that for some reason isn't fortified.
Yeah.
As if that's like a thing that she was not trained not to do. There's like silly things like that don't make any sense. That I just go
or like filling a room with a bunch of mannequins when your goal is to be able to hunt down a guy who wears a white mask. The fuck you doing with the mannequins, Jamie?
Things like that. Some of that stuff is so dumb, but I ate up every moment of this film. I really, really enjoyed it. Like even like, first of all, I thought the beginning of this film was pretty fucking badass. It's not as impactful of suddenly the reveal that the person even watching first person kill somebody is a child, but just that like nobody's talked to him ever. He doesn't speak to me. I've been his doctor. First of all, if he hasn't said a word to you, have you really been his doctor?
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Like, what have you been analyzing this whole time?
I'll tell you what he's been analyzing. I want to know what it's like to kill.
That guy. That fucking guy.
But no, yeah, like I think that there's a lot of fun in this, and like, you know, a lot of time there's always, I mean, go back to like Jaws, right? We're like, we got to get everybody out of the water, and it's like, what? We can't close the water on beach day, and then people start dying, and it's like, oh shit, get everybody out of the water, and it's like, what? It's not like we're gonna cancel Halloween, and I think just like the silliness of the world that we're living in is crazy, but. Michael Myers. I get him confused now. He's a frightening dude, right? He's very creepy. And another thing we've talked about is like I'm freaked out by people that I don't know what they're going to do, right? He is the ultimate. Yeah. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know what motivates him. I don't know what his goal is. He's just out there killing shit left and right for no reason, in very brutal ways. I think of all the people who got killed, I probably don't want to be the attendant at the gas station. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
That seemed to be pretty rough. But yeah, so I had fun with the film.
I don't know. I don't want to be it'd be a spoiler to say who it is, but somebody has a rather explosive ending.
I feel like that's a quicker go, though, than... Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Then you look like raw ground beef for the rest of your time.
But yeah, so anyways, I enjoyed the film immensely. There was some extremely, extremely, extremely dumb stuff in the film. Also, going back to the original one of the dumb things that annoyed me the most was... the doctor in that film has been hanging outside of the Myers house for hours. Directly across the street is the car that Mike Myers stole. Michael Myers, sorry. I'm just going to keep doing it the whole night. But across the street, it's been behind him the last hour of the film, and he's just like, why has he not come to the porch? Why? Why is he not here on the porch? And then finally he's like, oh, fuck, the car's been right there the whole time.
He wouldn't survive a day in the porch.
But it's just one of those things where it's like, character is just... I get that it's supposed to be that feeling of a thing that's... It's like modern horror films, right? Where like the ghost, the apparition comes up behind you, and then when you turn around, it's gone. Mm-hmm. I guess that's sort of supposed to be that sort of trope. Really, really dumb. Going to this film... There is a house owned by a person in this film, and that owner wants Michael Myers to come to that house, right? Mm. That's not the Myers house, right?
No. As far as I can tell, no.
Yeah, it's not. It's just a house in a forest. How on God's green earth was Michael Myers supposed to know that he needs to go to that house?
Yeah, so I feel like the trailer definitely plays up the idea of, like, I've been praying for him to escape so I could kill him.
Yeah.
I feel like that line in the movie almost feels out of place because what she's really doing is, like, embracing the inevitability that this will happen and is just gearing up for it.
Yeah, but
that seems closer to it, where, like, nobody knows why he would find it or how, but she just knows, like, somehow this force is going to get here.
Yeah, but so for me, what I would do if I was Jamie Lee Curtis and I survived this and I had this goal, I would buy the Myers house.
I'd move to China.
Because... Are you just quoting people who are talking about how they'd get away from the It Follows thing? Anyways, so I would buy the Myers house, and that would be the place I would lay in wait. Because clearly in the first film, when he kills the one girl, he places her in his sister's bed with the gravestone of the sister on top of it. Mm-hmm. He's clearly trying to recreate something there, right? So why would you just be like, well, I mean, he'll definitely know to go to the forest where my shooting range is, right? Like, it doesn't make sense why Michael Myers would know where to go.
What's interesting, though, is the mechanism this movie finds for getting him there actually does, like, make sense. It just attributes a lot more intent to things. But anyway, it would be too spoilery to talk about it. But I thought that was kind of... The places this movie goes are both, like, very gratifying because you get... I don't think this counts as a spoiler. You get that confrontation that you wanted in this movie. Like,
yeah.
It doesn't just leave you hanging there. You definitely get it. The way it brings you there are so many, like, moments where you're just like, don't do that. Like, don't
put your head next to the window.
Yeah. Don't put your head next to the window. Don't follow that person. You know,
don't get into the back of the closed cop car.
Yeah. Reverse and forward again.
So that is the thing too. Okay, going once again, I know this is a horror film trope of don't continually try to kill the thing that's trying to kill you after you've knocked it unconscious or whatever, right?
The original Halloween did that to such an amazing degree in the ending of it when she's like, well, I poked him once. I'm going to just turn around and cry now.
There's that shot where she's sitting. She's not even in the room anymore. She's like hanging her head out the other side, and she's like, "Hey, come talk to me, child." But I don't get why in any film you don't just violently stab the shit out of the killer after you've knocked him down. Mm-hmm. Especially, and if you're definitely not going to do it, at least do like in the cop movies, right? Where like they kick the gun away.
Yeah,
she straight up in the first Halloween
just drops the knife.
She has his knife, and goes like, "Well, he must be out," and then she just sets it right next to him. It's like the handles to him and everything. It's just also some continuity errors in the first Halloween. The knife's upstairs. There was just the confrontation, and when they do the establishing shot of the kitchen, the knife's in the kitchen too.
Shit.
Think about that.
What if there's more than one knife?
There's not, though. Because it's the knife from the earlier scene that they take upstairs.
Speaking of things that happen upstairs, can we talk about the greatest little kid in a movie this year?
Yes. The child that is being babysat is the greatest kid ever.
I loved that kid, and I don't know if he's been in other things or not, but I want him to be in everything.
You guys talking about weed?
He was hilarious. I like, too, that girl's boyfriend in this movie. He was in Blockers also as like this drug. I think he was known as like the chemist or something. He's a drug guy. And I thought he played both characters very well. I liked him as the kind of spacey. So is he shady? Is he not? That's the thing, is the male characters in this movie, like at least at first glance, they all seem harmless, right?
The one who blows up the pumpkin.
Yeah. Yeah, they all seem kind of harmless, but then most of them show like some kind of shittier tendencies later. I don't know. I liked it. I like the kids in this movie. I like the granddaughter character too. I think she was good. I think everyone plays up their role to the hammy degree that they need to.
Yeah. I do. My favorite moment in the film is the line that we've been saying a bunch of times, where she's like, "I've prayed every night that he would escape so that I can kill him," and then the cop is just like, "Oh, well, that was a dumb thing to pray for." It's just so great. I love that response.
I think the best bit of dialogue though involved banh mi sandwiches.
It was pretty good. It was a very specific joke, it seemed like.
Yeah, it was. But I appreciated it. I did like to... So I thought the intro to this movie was pretty good. I didn't love it.
You didn't get a little bit of goosebumps?
Maybe I got some goosebumps. I thought... I don't even want to spoil it, so I'm not even going to say what I thought would happen.
I mean, I assume it relates to his arm being over the line.
Yeah, exactly. But I did really love that immediately after that, the old school title card comes up and you're right back in the 70s Halloween.
Yeah,
I thought that was a cool intro. That was like a very confident way of being like, boom, John Carpenter, we're doing this again.
Yeah. You know, it definitely felt cool to have those same like glowy letters.
I also want to rant similarly to how we ranted last week about First Man being politicized. I saw some takes on the internet of this movie stigmatizing mental illness when the whole mythology is so clearly that like he's evil. He's the embodiment of pure evil.
Yeah.
If that is stigmatizing mental illness, then I don't know what is. But I will say, if I were looking at that angle, that intro scene where literally everyone in this nonviolent mental health hospital are like screaming and barking in like evil ways, that maybe tips a little bit more. But Michael Myers as a character doesn't tip that way.
True. Maybe mental illness is actually the heightened form of evolution, and you can pick up on pure evil if you're mentally ill. Mm-hmm. What about that?
I think you might be at risk of a predator coming and snatching you.
Let's see. What else can we say about this film, Halloween?
It's definitely more fun to watch than it is to talk about.
That is true.
I just summarized the problem of podcasting.
And on that note, should we get to verdict, Stephen?
Sure.
All right. If you're going to give this a must-see, recommend with the caveat, wait for rental, pass with the caveat, or a must-avoid, what would you give it?
I don't know, because I don't know if I'm grading on a curve and what curve I'm grading on. But I had fun. I was never bored of this movie. I thought, like, as a sequel to the original, it does a pretty good job. I don't think it isn't as focused as the original, and like it's also not fair because 40 years later, I guess I just expect different things from a movie.
I wouldn't even say the first one's focused. It's like there's no explanation for what's happening or where the mask came from or anything.
So here's the thing. I think what the first one does really well is it establishes what thing is scary. And in the first one, the thing is big empty houses, right? It's like babysitting. It's suburbia. It's the idea that there's all these places that somebody can come in and you're all alone in this big house and you don't know if a thing is in the room anymore. This new one like didn't really have that clean summary. I feel like he kills indiscriminately in all sorts of different places, and there's not really like the one thing that you get to be afraid of. Like teeth are involved too, like just for the trailer, I think.
Also, her house is fucking dumb. The whole plan is dumb. I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to go into spoilers. But seems like a real easy way to handle all that shit. Just wire up all those doors to one central location, which she already has.
I got an idea for you too. Without putting away spoilers, there's another place you could have put fire. It's a little less roundabout. Anyway, I don't know. A fun wait for rental, like this would be a fun rental to watch after the original one. I had fun with it, but like it didn't give me much either. So a positive peppy wait for rental.
I'm going to bump it up to a recommend with a caveat. I mean, this movie is dumb. There's some really dumb things, but it's so much fun. I think it's really, really fun. And I think that it plays, the original one, it's made in the 70s. It's goofy. It's straight up goofy. It's scary in that if that was really happening, it would be scary, but it's also kind of goofy. This one at least makes Michael Myers frightening as a thing, as an entity, in a way that I think the other one didn't. It also kind of makes him superhuman. But
The other one did too, I think.
Yeah, a little bit.
Certainly the final shot of him being there and then not being there after everything he's endured is like hinting that he's superhuman.
Yeah, and I will definitely say too, whatever regimen they have in that mental hospital. I mean, 40 years later, he's
on some Tom Cruise shit.
He didn't lose any stature at all.
How many midichlorians or whatever Scientologists believe in do you think he has?
Midichlorians. He just offended a lot of Force believers. But anyways, yeah, I thought it was worth the watch. I thought it was pretty fun. If you're just going into it cold with no context for the original,
why?
Why? I mean, we always do this thing that we talk about where like I'll rent something on iTunes just because I am cheap, but like it's not that much more to just buy it. I went on to the iTunes store because it didn't appear to be streaming in Netflix or Hulu, and it was like $3.99 to rent HT. Buy it $4.99.
Yeah, I bought it.
I clicked rent, and then it popped up. Are you sure? And then I hit cancel, and then I hit buy, and then I just bought it, so I had it in the collection. But I was like, it's $5. Go, it's a coffee. It's a coffee. Go watch the movie, and then go Movie Pass or Cinemia or AMC Stub List this movie in theaters because it's fun and it's an enjoyable time.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I think that is going to bring us to the end of this episode of the podcast. Stephen Miller, if people want to find you throughout the week, where can they do that?
You can go to twitter.com/sdavidmiller or sdavidmiller.com.
People can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or twitter.com/ChristopherIRL. You can find the podcast over at thespoilerwarning.com where you can get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can do so in Overcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want to know when the episodes go live, you can follow us at twitter.com/spoilerwarning or like us at facebook.com/thespoilerwarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can do so by sending an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will be the theme to Halloween, so hopefully you're enjoying that. Yeah, that's it. That is a review. We're going to take off, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.